Hi, thanks for stopping by Friendly Feathers Farm today and welcome back for kidding season part 3. In today's video, we'll talk about what you can expect days to hours before your doe gives birth, all the way up to 3 to 4 weeks post-kidding. I'll also cover vaccinations, disbudding, and tattooing. I'll share a few other things with you, and I will share some tips and tricks that will make kidding season a little bit easier for you. I'll also talk about some mistakes we've made in the past so that you don't have to repeat the same ones. So let's get into it. So you bred your doe last fall and now it's spring of the following year and she's getting close to her time for giving birth or kidding. How do you know that she's going to go into labor? Well, here's some of the signs. Your doe may show all, some, or none of the following signs to indicate that she is going into labor. She may stop eating. She may separate herself from the herd. She may have a blank stare. You may notice a white or clear discharge from the vulva, and she may be holding her tail in a high position. This is by no means a complete list of all the signs you'll see when your doe is getting ready to go into labor. And if you've been through a couple of kidding seasons, please leave a comment below about the signs you've observed when your doe is getting ready to kid. Knowing your doe's kidding date can also clue you in on when she's ready to give birth. To estimate this date, count forward 150 days from the date she was bred, or use the goat gestation calculator on the American Goat Society website. This will give you a kidding date plus or minus 5 days. Despite all our vigilance for looking for signs of labor, sometimes our does will give birth right when we turn our backs. For this very reason, we close them up in their kidding pens at night with the heat lamps on. We also use a baby monitor to save us lots of trips from walking back and forth to the barn. I'll put a link for the monitor that we use in the description below. When your doe is ready to deliver her kids, she may do it lying down or she may deliver standing up. Let's talk about what happens after your doe gives birth. Well, immediately she will probably start to lick them clean, and she may or may not, I know this sounds gross, she may or may not eat the placenta or afterbirth. She may bury it within the pen and you'll have to look for it later and get it out. And I've got a cautionary tale about that and I'll tell you about it in a minute. And don't be surprised if your doe stops what she's doing with licking and cleaning the kid that's presently in the pen to stop and deliver another kid and possibly even another kid. Most does know what to do instinctively, but if you have a first freshener, and that's a doe that's given birth for the first time, she may not know what to do. She may actually be a little standoffish with her kid. In that case, you might want to start pushing the kid towards her and encouraging her to interact with it. Now, in the past, we have made the mistake of jumping in ourselves and doing the job of the dam, and we ended up doing it a little too soon and didn't really give her a chance to do her job. If you can hold off, and if the kid seems to not be in distress, keep encouraging the dam to interact with her kid and do what she needs to do in the beginning. One really important thing that needs to happen within the first 12 to 24 hours after the kids are born is that they receive colostrum. Colostrum is the first milk that the mother produces. It's full of nutrients and vitamins and things that are really going to help the kids get their immune systems off to a good start. So if you do find yourself in the situation where you have a doe that is too ill to nurse, has died, or is outright rejecting her kids, consider milking that doe and then bottle feeding the colostrum to the kid. You can either get colostrum from another doe that has kidded at the same time and feed that colostrum to the kid. You can check the classifieds for people who are selling colostrum, or you can consider getting a commercial colostrum replacement. I'm sorry for the reflection. This particular brand is called ManaPro, and I will leave a link for it in the description below. Once the doe has finished kidding, you will need to get the placenta and afterbirth out of the kidding pen and provide a nice clean layer of straw. Now, remember that cautionary tale I was telling you about? Well, one year we had about 4 does bred, and I'm not exaggerating. Every single one of those kids born, and there were 7 of them, were male. And for a dairy goat situation, you don't want a lot of males. So we were in the process of cleaning up the kidding pens, and we were using a pitchfork for this. Well, guess what? One of the does had buried her kid in the straw. She'd completely covered it with straw. And fortunately, that particular time, we did not use the pitchfork. We just decided to put gloves on and take this soiled straw out by hand. And lo and behold, we found a kid buried under the straw. So take that into consideration after your doe has given birth. If you didn't have your eyes on her the entire time, check through the straw and make sure that you don't have any live kids under there. And if you are using a pitchfork or some other sharp implement to get the soiled straw out of the kidding pen, be very careful, because you might just have a little baby goat under there. Oh, and I forgot to mention that little baby goat that was buried under the straw. Well, that was our one and only girl for the year. Yes, Titania, I'll tell them. Thank you for the reminder. As Titania just mentioned, there's a few more things we need to talk about after your doe kids. If you notice that she has a lack of appetite and seems lethargic and maybe has some trouble with her balance, she may have gone into ketosis. When a doe kids, there's an increased energy demand to produce milk. If she doesn't have enough carbohydrates on board to do this, her body will start breaking down muscle to provide the energy needed. The breakdown of muscle leads to ketones in the blood and thus the condition of ketosis. To make sure our does get enough carbohydrates, we give them molasses water right after kidding. We use 4 to 5 cups of warm water with just enough molasses mixed in to make the water brown. We also give extra rations of grains in the days leading up to delivery and a few days afterwards. Yes, very important. After your doe kids, you may still see that the placenta or afterbirth is hanging from her vulva. She should pass this naturally in most cases within 12 to 24 hours. If you still see it there after that amount of time, you may want to consider calling the vet. Meantime, do not pull this out of the doe. Let it pass naturally, otherwise it may cause injury to her. It's important to tie off the kids' umbilical cords to prevent bacteria from traveling up. We use a length of dental floss to tie the cord off about an inch from the body. Then the excess floss and cord are cut and disposed of. The remaining cord attached to the kid's body is dabbed with iodine. It'll dry up and fall off in a week or 2. So there is an important decision that you're going to need to make either prior to your doe kidding or soon after. You're going to have to decide whether you want your kids to be dam raised or bottle fed. Dam raised means that the mother goat does all the work, and bottle feeding means that you do the work. There's pros and cons to bottle feeding versus dam raised. Those can be researched online. One school of thought is that bottle-raised kids are friendlier than dam-raised. However, we find that as long as we interact with the kids regularly, they're just as friendly. If you've been through a kidding season or two, comment below on your experiences with either method. Just so you know, we allow our kids to be dam-raised because frankly, we just don't want to get up at 2 a.m. to go out and bottle feed. If you've chosen to let your kids be dam-raised, just keep in mind that things do go awry during kidding season. You may have a doe that becomes ill, or heaven forbid, she dies during kidding, or she just rejects her kids. You're going to need to bottle feed in that situation. So I recommend having the following things on hand. You will want to have some of these Pritchard nipples on hand. I'll put a link for them in the description below. You'll want to make sure that you cut this little tip off, otherwise you won't get any milk flow. This is what the nipple looks like once you cut the tip off. Any kind of water bottles, soda bottles, or juice bottles will work for this, as long as it has this kind of standard size opening that the nipple will fit on. And they will fit on to the bottle like so. And I will leave a link in the description to a source where you can buy these Pritchard nipples. Milk can be sourced in the same way as colostrum, from the dam or another doe producing more than needed by her kids, the classifieds, or a commercial milk replacer, although this last option can get kind of pricey. By the way, if you do have a doe that's producing more milk than needed for the amount of kids she has, consider freezing some of that milk for the following year. It does lose a little bit of its nutritional value being frozen, but it's better than having nothing, and at least you'll have something on hand until you find another solution for the problem. We leave the dams and their kids together in the pen to bond. After a few days, we gradually start letting them out. The kids get to know the livestock guardian dogs, learn the lay of the land, and how to forage. Okay, it's time to wrap up kidding season and get these kids disbudded, tattooed, and vaccinated. Disbudding is removing the tissue that forms horns. It's usually done at the age of 7 to 14 days. Not everyone chooses to do this, but we do it for our safety, the safety of the goat, and the rest of the herd. Disbudding can be a do-it-yourself job, but we have our large animal vet do it. She has access to medication for sedation and analgesia. It's less stress for us and the kids. And here's a tip. We take advantage of the time that they're still under sedation to tattoo their ears and to take photos, both of which are needed for the registration process. Within 30 minutes to an hour, the kids are up and back to their usual antics. Okay, let's get the goats tattooed. This is what you're going to need. Tattoo pliers. Notice that one is marked with a piece of tape so that I know one is for the left ear and one is for the right. You'll need some cotton balls or an old clean rag. You'll definitely want to wear gloves so you don't get tattoo paste all over your hands. You'll need an old toothbrush that's been cleaned, tattoo paste, and a piece of scrap paper for recording your tattoos on, and you will also want some alcohol. Identify the goat's right ear and left ear. Load the toothbrush with the tattoo paste and set it aside. Use cotton balls or an old rag and alcohol to clean any dirt off the goat's ears. Now stop. Take a moment to ensure the correct letters and numbers have been loaded into the pliers by testing it on a piece of paper. If you want to know more about what these letters and numbers mean, watch my video on how to register a goat with the Miniature Dairy Goat Association, also known as MDGA. I'll leave a link to that below. Now, rub the paste onto the front and back of each ear. Obviously, your goat's ears will stay attached. Slide the goat's ears into the pliers, press firmly, then release. Do the same thing for the opposite ear using the other set of pliers designated for the corresponding ear. Massage the tattoo paste in afterwards. The tattoo paste should wear off in about a week. As you can see, when the goat grows up, they are hornless and there's not really evidence of a scar that's left. You can look at the ears and see that the tattoo is not visible. It will only be visible if a light is shown from behind the ears. Well, time flies when you're having fun, and before you know it, the kids are nearly a month old, and it's time to think about vaccinating for CDT. The usual dose is 2 to 5 mLs given just under the skin, but you can always confirm with your vet or check the product label, as the dosage may vary with brands. This is the CDT vaccine. You can pick this up at your local feed store or online. You can also get needles and syringes at your local feed store or online as well. You probably don't need a needle that's this long. For your kids, half the length would be sufficient. If your doe was properly vaccinated prior to kidding, then the kids will receive their initial immunity to these organisms through the colostrum. If you're unaware or don't know the vaccination status of your doe prior to kidding, then you would want to give this vaccine as early as 3 to 4 weeks. But if the doe was properly vaccinated, it can be given to the kids as late as 6 weeks. And I've indicated with a green dot approximately where we inject our kids with this vaccine. As you can see, kidding season is a really busy time of the year. Thank you for stopping by the farm today. Drop by anytime when you're on the web at friendlyfeathersfarm.com. Be sure to check out our other videos, Kidding Season Part 1 and Kidding Season Part 2. If you found something useful in this video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave any questions or comments below, and I will see you in the next video.